Until recently, the national conversation about this 2024 presidential election has been largely focused on white working class voters. President Biden considered himself the champion of the working and the middle class. Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, he introduced himself at the Republican National Convention as the son of Appalachia with hillbilly roots, a man who would fight for the workers in this country. But the question of how black voters might vote this year, black voters, a key segment of the electorate, that question has been unusually open-ended. When President Biden was still at the top of the Democratic ticket, polls showed him underperforming with black voters as they slipped to Donald Trump. An in-depth Pew survey of nearly 9,000 adults published this summer before Biden dropped out found that 1 in 5 black men said they planned to vote for Trump. In the 2016 election, 13% of black men voted for Trump, but in 2020, 19% of black men did. Part of Biden's problem as a candidate was figuring out how to stop black voters, especially black men, from deserting the Democratic Party this November. But since Vice President Kamala Harris has become the de facto nominee less than 2 weeks ago, those numbers have changed, and they have changed significantly. And now the Trump campaign is in a tailspin as it tries to figure out whether voters of color, particularly black voters, are still in play. And so today, in a remarkably ill-advised appearance before the National Association of Black Journalists, the NABJ, Donald Trump sat on stage for a question and answer session.
A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. You were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. You to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Calling ABC reporter Rachel Scott disgraceful, complaining that these journalists couldn't figure out how to operate their equipment, repeatedly calling the black reporters late. All complaints that veered into racist tropes about tardiness and competence. That is how Donald Trump's NABJ appearance went today. But that maybe wasn't even the worst part. When Trump was subsequently asked about Republican claims that Vice President Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman, Trump responded by questioning Harris's racial identity.
You believe this shit?
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I
that
think somebody should look into that too when you ask, continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
That's Donald Trump openly questioning the racial identity of the country's first black Asian vice president. Just for the record here, while campaigning for Attorney General of California and later for President of the United States in 2020, Kamala Harris repeatedly told her family's story. The story of 2 immigrants, one from Jamaica and the other from India, who found opportunity in the United States. On this point, Kamala Harris has never been unclear.
I was raised by a proud Indian mother as a proud African American woman.
I was the first woman elected, the first African American woman elected, an Asian American woman elected in the state as a district attorney.
Harris's identity as a biracial American and the story of her immigrant heritage are two things that a lot of voters can relate to. But Donald Trump suggested to a room full of black people that Harris's blackness was somehow inadequate. And in the hours since that debacle of an event, Donald Trump has only doubled down. He has made questioning Vice President Harris's blackness an actual campaign strategy. Minutes after leaving the stage, Trump wrote on social media, "Crazy Kamala is saying she's Indian, not black. This is a big deal. Stone cold phony. She uses everybody, including her racial identity." This evening, as crowds gathered for a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the Trump campaign projected above the stage an image of Harris next to a headline that reads, "California's Kamala Harris becomes first Indian American U.S. Senator." Then, at that same rally, Trump campaign advisor and lawyer Alina Habba went after Vice President Harris
This bitch, I want to shoot her in the fucking head.
I'm going to speak to you, Miss Harris.
Fucking white bitch.
I am a strong woman, a mom, a lawyer, and an American.
What? So are you suggesting she's not?
And unlike you, Kamala,
Kamala?
I know who my roots are. I know where I come from.
Really?
So that is the Trump strategy to win black voters this November. That is the strategy. And then there is the Harris strategy. An hour ago, Vice President Harris made remarks at the convention of the Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, one of the country's 9 most prominent black fraternities and sororities, ones that make up the Divine Nine. These fraternities and sororities have a century-long history of political organizing, mobilizing voters in black communities across the country. And this year, with Kamala Harris now atop the ticket, the presidents of all 9 groups published this letter promising to meet this critical moment with an unprecedented voter registration, education, and mobilization campaign. Many of the 4 million members of the Divine Nine joined last week's organizing call for the group Win with Black Women, the call that raised more than $1.5 million for the Harris campaign. Many members of the Divine Nine are also political journalists. It is that community of black organizers that Kamala Harris spoke to tonight, just hours after her opponent used his time on stage to insult them.
It was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better. The American people deserve better.